Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I have some bad news, and that is that Shadow Gligar is not dead. Shadow Gligar was the undisputed best Pokemon in the Open Great League for the past year. And as a result, in the most recent balance update, it received 2 nerfs. Wing Attack generates less energy, and Dig does less damage. In today's video, I'm making the argument that Shadow Gligar is still a pretty good pick for the Open Great League. However, you need to run Fury Cutter as the fast move. I didn't come up with this idea was actually recommended to me by a member of my Discord, Tangy Platypus, but Fury Cutter Shadow Gligar put in a ton of work for me today. I lost the first game that I tried with it, and then I won 9 games in a row, with Shadow Gligar honestly proving to be an integral part of many of those wins. With Fury Cutter, Shadow Gligar still retains the original pacing that it had with Wing Attack. Of course, you're doing less damage, so it makes Shadow Gligar less of a neutral generalist, but honestly, I would argue the meta environment is even better for it right now because people are not respecting a Pokemon with the defensive resistances that come with being a ground flying type. So you can encounter teams that are safe switching stuff like Mud Slappers or a Malamar that you could just completely destroy with the Shadow Gligar. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and I'm going to be showcasing my 9-game win streak with Fury Cutter Gligar in the Open Great League. Hopping into the first match, leading Shadow Feraligatr into Jumpluff. This matchup feels surprisingly okay for the Shadow Feraligatr, as you pace to the Ice Beam at the same time they get to their first Energy Ball. And this is a pretty safe bait for Gator, because if the Jumpluff gets it wrong, they're getting knocked out of the sky. I try and go for the catch onto the Dunsparce, opponent actually throws energy anyway. This is great. No matter what they throw, even if it's the acrobatics, I'm super fine taking that damage. Out comes Feraligatr, and Feraligatr is going to get hit with Drill Run after Drill Run. Drill Run number 1 will connect, and there's more where that came from. Dunsparce able to apply a ton of pressure instantly onto Feraligatr. Feraligatr shields, and just like that, I have a 2-0 shield advantage, and I baited out their water type. Feraligatr is going to pick up the knockout with the Hydro Cannon. I bring back in my own, and I'm going to go for a 1-shield farm down play. This is going to allow me to exit with a ton of energy. Opponent switches in the Jumpluff, and Jumpluff is going to be able to force my shield. However, I should be in a good spot now, because I can massively overfarm, pick up the knockout with the Ice Beam. Feraligatr energy is so flexible that it's basically guaranteed to be good versus what they have in the back. So at this point, it shouldn't matter what they have back there. I should basically just win. In the back, it's a Clodsire, and I don't even need that Hydro Cannon. I can just win the game with the Shadow Gligar. Shadow Gligar does survive 2 Stone Edges and the Poison Stings if you're high rank. So I have the rank 22, I'm able to hang on. Opponent is going to go for a catch on a Feraligatr, but I can just Fury Cutter down with the Gligar, and the ghost of meta past, Shadow Gligar, is going to sweep this endgame with back-to-back digs, winning charge attack priority over that Clodsire. Dig picks up the KO, and that is a good game. Hopping into the next match, this is just automatic game over. I just lose. Shadow Feraligatr versus Chestnut. I am so ABA weak to Chestnut, but my opponent makes a pretty big misplay. They should Frenzy right on 6 as they're able to outpace, but they don't, and then they make a second misplay. They overfarm and play to a CMP tie that they do not win, and they double shield. That Hydro would not KO, but it does a lot of damage, so landing it would have been valuable. But right off the bat, the opponent would have been in a much better spot if they played that out differently. I'd bring in the Gligar, which is my only answer, but they're going to send in a Dugong safe switch, and I immediately switch out and send in Dunsparce. If they're switching in an Ice type aggressively, that's really not great, as it means there could be another Ice type lurking in the back. But most other Ice types will take super effective damage from the charge attacks from Gligar. Dugong's kind of the one that Gligar can't really deal with. In comes the Chestnut. My Switch Clock not available yet. Opponent is going to try and go for a CMP tie. I just want to save this energy. And I want to switch back into the Gligar. In comes the Gligar. They're at another Frenzy. I'm going to shield, because even if it's something like an A-Slash, Dig will hurt. In the back, it's a Shadow Drapion. Oh no, they were ABA weak. So I was ABA weak to their Chestnut. They were ABA weak to my Gligar. And the opponent is going to resign the match. Hopping into the next match, picking up a pretty nice lead, Shadow Feraligatr versus Azumarill. Azumarill, despite the fact that it should win this matchup on paper, often struggles versus Feraligatr. There my opponent demonstrates very poor fast attack timing. They end up throwing and giving me an entire free Shadow Claw. And Feraligatr's already spammy enough, so giving me free turns, not usually going to be a recipe for success. I'm able to farm up to the back-to-back Hydros, looking to put some pressure onto the Azumarill. Azumarill is going to shield. They go for a snipe with a Shadow Golurk. Trainer, you cannot be safe-switching Mud Slappers, as in comes Shadow Gligar. Shadow Gligar going to take a ton of damage from Shadow Punch. Golurk's attack stat is insane. That Shadow Punch does so much damage. I'll be honest, I don't know if an Aerial Ace would have knocked out here. I didn't want to risk them surviving, so I just go for the dig to pick up the knockout, and Golurk is going to get KO'd. Shadow Golurk, a very cool pick. I'm excited to run it in Halloween Cup. In comes the Azumarill, and I can just bring in the Dunsparce. That's one really nice advantage of not being switch locked there, is I don't have to stay in what is a pretty terrible matchup. In the back, they have Shadow Sableye. Shadow Sableye is really, really good, but in a 0-2 shield situation, it's not going to be able to do much of anything. I can shield once with the Dunsparce, and then I can go for 3 rollouts and the move, throwing on good timing, and overfarming to get as much energy as I possibly can, because this residual energy, of course, will be very valuable into the Azumarill. Drill Run is going to land, and that instantly wins me the game. Another situation where Fury Cutter is going to be a little awkward is versus fairies like Azu, but the good news here is we have some pretty good anti-fairies with the other 2 Pokemon. Alright, good lead in the next match. Shadow Feraligatr versus Drifblim. Look at these Astonishes, by the way. Astonish is now a crazy move. If I'm not mistaken, Astonish is Ghost-type Mud Slap. It has insane stats now, my goodness. They have to Shadow Ball here. If they don't Shadow Ball, I can survive and get another Hydro. They do Shadow Ball, and I'm going to bring in Dunsparce. Dunsparce, farming up. I'm just going to go for a full farm down. They're going to fire off an Icy Wind or a Mystical Fire. Either one is fine by me. Opponent is going to pivot into their own Dunsparce, and unfortunately, I'm forced to switch out. This matchup, not as comfortable as one might hope. Rollout with the damage buff does actually add up, but the nice thing here as the Gligar is you can survive 2 Rock Slides plus the rollouts. I will commit the shield just because I do want to preserve a little bit of health, and I was a little, it took a little bit of time to get used to the one-turn timing with Gligar, because obviously that's not what it used to have. But after I got the hang of it, it did feel pretty comfortable. Throwing the back-to-back digs. Dig will pick up the KO. In comes the Drifblim. I switch out in the back. Oh, it's Clodsire. A lot of teams ABA weak. This time they're ABA weak to the Dunsparce, and Dunsparce can absolutely make them pay for that. One slightly annoying thing about Clodsire is it can actually live 2 drill runs. I'm forced to fire off a 3rd to potentially pick up a knockout. They have to shield this. They are well understanding that my Dunsparce is a serious threat. I will commit the shield as they go for the Stone Edge. I look to switch out. In comes the Drifblim. I can fire off the Aerial Ace. Aerial Ace is going to KO that Drifblim. I just really didn't want to risk a farm down since I'm not going to Fury Cutter down, but Clodsire not going to be able to get enough energy to win this game, as Aerial Ace is going to knock them out, and Shadow Gligar taking quite a few wins in Season 20, which is not what I was expecting. Shadow Feraligatr versus Shadow Feraligatr. We are staying in and playing out the zeros. The zeros are pretty close either way. I am going to fire off the Hydro. I actually won Charge Attack priority there. I was pretty surprised by that. In this instance, I actually don't want to win the zeros. Winning the zeros to me is honestly worse because then my opponent can get farmed. So watch this. I don't throw my Hydro there because I don't care about switch. I know Dunsparce is extremely neutral. I would rather value 1 rollout of energy head start and only have him taking basically no damage from that one singular Shadow Claw. In comes a Venusaur. Up energy is good for the Dunsparce. I maybe should have switched instantly into the Gligar. There was unfortunately quite a bit of lag there, but the good news is we are able to catch back up. Frenzy will connect. That deals massive damage. In the back is a Clodsire. Clodsire is rank 1 on PvP Poke. Everyone's going to be running it. And Gligar just does so well here. Unfortunately, with Fury Cutter, of course, Fury Cutter, you're getting basically no fast move pressure out of the Clodsire, whereas in previous seasons with Wing Attack, you actually could potentially farm it down. But since Wing Attack has been gutted, you're basically going to want to stick to just spamming out these charge moves. But yeah, overall, unfortunately, I didn't get to see a Malamar, but I really would have liked to see the Malamar matchup with double super effective Fury Cutter absolutely melting it. In comes the Venusaur. Venusaur will go for the Frenzy Plant, and I'm very okay with shielding here. I'm going to shield, look to farm up, and throw right before they're able to get their move. They're probably going to want to save shields for the Claude. I can force Claude's energy by committing to a dig. And then I can just outpace them and make double drill run on the Dunsparce. Because when they switched in the Claude, I banked a bunch of energy before I switched out. Because I knew I had a pretty good check to their energy, they know the only way they win is if they tank one, so they no shield, and I take the win. We see a familiar lead in the next match, and a good one at that. The Shadow Feraligatr versus Drifblim. Drifblim going to get outpaced pretty severely. With Astonish, it's 5-4 to Icy Wind, and then for Shadow Ball, it's 6-5. So Feraligatr has a huge pacing advantage, but look at the Astonishes. I'm still not over how much damage that does. That is ridiculous. Opponent switches into their own Feraligatr. I bank the Hydro for later, and I'm going to bring in Dunsparce. Opponent does have very nice timing there, making sure that they're not giving me a rollout for free. I'm not going to win the Zero Shields in this matchup. However, I'm honestly okay with that. I would rather just get them low and instead go for a massive Fury Cutter farm down. I think I can get this farm down before they make a move. It's going to be really close. Come on, Gligar. Gligar! Oh my goodness, they live on 1 HP. You hate to see it. They're going to save that Feraligatr for later, bring in Dunsparce, and Dunsparce is now going to get hit with dig after dig. Dig is going to connect. Dunsparce firing off the Rock Slide. Rock Slide, not really something that I have to worry about here. I can let this through. That's very okay. I'm going to farm up, fire off another dig. I don't think this will quite be enough to knock out. It will be very close. Dunsparce barely able to hang on, and Dunsparce is going to be able to force that final shield. So I will commit the shield. I'm going to get the Fury Cutter farm down. I have a Hydro Cannon loaded on my Feraligatr. They're going to be sending back in the Drifblim. Drifblim, if they shield, I can combo. I just have to watch for it. So I'm going to switch, throw the Shadow Claw as they anticipate the switch. A fun little mind game there. And we're going to be able to take the game as Ice Beam will knock out Drifblim. Hopping into the next match, Shadow Feraligatr versus Licky. Not an amazing lead for me. I'm going to stay in to start with, throw 4, switch, sneak, and catch onto that Dunsparce. So now I have an energy advantage for whatever they decide to send in. Licky going to stay in. They bank a Body Slam for later, bring in a Azumarill, and I'm so happy to see the Azumarill here. Fury Cutter Gligar gets destroyed by Azumarill. Fury Cutter Gligar is more of a meta play, specifically to do with a lot of the buffed Pokemon. Like you're dealing with all of the Mud Slappers, you're dealing with the Malamars of the world, and just having that ground plus flying typing is just not something people are preparing for whatsoever when they're team building right now, so it can be very helpful. Opponent will fire off energy. Hydro Pump picks up the knockout, and I'm going to bring in Feraligatr. I think I can get it. I commit to the full farm down, and the opponent dies with a Play Rough. What a massive turn of events. In comes Licky, and Licky will go for the Body Slam. I'm already at 100. I may as well take the 1 damage that comes from throwing the Shadow Claw as I fire off the Hydro. They shield Licky. So it seems like whatever they have in back is not a big fan of energy from Feraligatr. I fire off another Hydro. They double shield the Licky. I'm going to bring in Gligar. Gligar going to be hit with a Body Slam. That's very okay. Opponent full sends a Shadow Ball. In the back is Clefable. Uh-oh. This is really not great for me. Again, Fairy types are going to be a lot worse if you're running Fury Cutter here. I try and throw on good timing. I don't know if that was a stutter or operator error, but I give them a free Fairy Wind. This will be an incredibly close endgame. I have to use my final shield here and overfarm as much as I can. I'm 1 off a Hydro, but a Hydro will not KO Licky. I need a Hydro plus an Aerial Ace. So I'm going to farm up with the Gligar. Opponent will try and commit to the farm down. I time it perfectly. So I get the switch, the Shadow Claw, and the Hydro Cannon on charge attack priority. Opponent tried to commit to the farm down. I had to time the switch perfectly there. So that way, with switch taking a turn and Shadow Claw taking 2 turns, I could cap tie them with the Hydro, KO with the Gligar, and the win streak continues. Hopping into the next match, bit of a tricky lead here. Shadow Feraligatr versus Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz throws on alignment right away. I guess they want to land damage before I can threaten an Ice Beam and switch out, but then they actually switch out. They switch into a Azumarill. That's very okay. I can throw 7 Shadow Claws and then go into the Dunsparce before they fire off the Play Rough. Here my opponent actually makes a pretty good play. They go for the Ice Beam, understanding that I want to farm up a ton and switch out, and they know they can force a shield. So I'm going to farm up just shy of 100 energy. ready. So now that Feraligatr is absolutely loaded for later, and I can bring in Dunsparce. Dunsparce fires off Drill Run. Drill Run, unfortunately, not really going to be able to set up a farm down. So what I just need to do here is throw 5 and then go for a Rock Slide, because them catching a Drill Run on a Mandy would be devastating. Drill Run is the better move to go for in neutral situations, but they're low enough that a Rock Slide will KO anyway. They shield, and that's quite interesting. That is quite interesting. They do not want to see this Dunsparce with what they have in the back, and it actually ends up being a Carbink. So they have Mandibuzz and Mandibuzz's worst nightmare on the same team. I do have 2 Hydros banked. I initially wanted the energy for the Mandibuzz, but now I'm thinking this is a really easy way to get rid of Carbink. Carbink isn't at a power gem yet. I have back-to-back Hydros, so they can't shield. And if they bring in Mandibuzz, I have guaranteed win conditions as long as I bait. All I have to do is go straight Hydro. Whether they no-shield the first or shield the first, it doesn't matter. Landing that Hydro Cannon guarantees me this victory. They are going to shield up, get a huge farm down, but now I can bring in Shadow Gligar. To me, this really felt like the first game where Shadow Gligar kind of got carried. Unfortunately for my opponent, they were just so weak to that Dunsparce. That Dunsparce was just able to put in a tremendous amount of work, and then Gligar is just basically a meat shield. They try and catch on the Azu. I Fury Cutter down an Azu. And here, I'm feeling like a little bit of bad manners. Why not? It can be fun from time to time. I'm going for the double resisted dig onto that Mandibuzz. So, negative lead, but we're able to get the win with a little bit of bad manners. Hopping into the final match, this was the first match that I played with the team, and this was actually the one loss that I had with the team as well. Feraligatr into Dunsparce, despite the type disadvantage, Feraligatr does win the 0s and the 1s here, unless it's an extremely high-ranked Dunsparce. Here, my opponent farms up to the back-to-back, and that just lets me CMB-tie them. So I'm very okay with that, because I need to be able to force a shield. And forcing a shield here now means that I can just no-shield. I'm very okay with just letting the Feraligatr go. Opponent is going to farm up a ton, and if you're going to farm up 3, then I'm just going to catch and sneak. So I get the catch onto the Dunsparce, I get to save the Feraligatr for later. Out comes a Azumarill. Okay, this is very fine. I needed to bait this out. Gligar, of course, not going to do well into Azumarill. We saw that Azumarill was almost able to bubble me down in that last game, and they had almost no HP. Fury Cutter does not have fast move pressure into this Pokemon. I'm going to fire off Drill Run after Drill Run, just trying to do whatever damage that I can. I still have 2 shields. I decide to let it go, because Play Rough does not knock out, and I can make the Drill Run. That is quite nice. Drill Run not going to knock out either, though. It will get them low, and that's what I need. I quick switch into Feraligatr, fire off the Hydro Cannon to snipe down this energy. So Azu is going to get KO'd in the back. Oh, it's Talonflame. And this is a situation where Fury Cutter is definitely worse. Fury Cutter double resisted here, so I have no ability to farm them down. They correctly go for the Flame Charge. They're realizing in this endgame, their best bet is boosting up damage. As we can see, an Aerial Ace will do some very nice damage, but it's not going to put them into a range where I can farm them down. And they're just going Flame Charge again. And even if I get a catch, I just can't win because I'm taking too much damage. So, an unfortunate situation where I go against an opponent who just has a really strong team into the Shadow Gligar. Not something you'll encounter too frequently, but overall, yeah, that's going to be a loss basically all the time. All right, final thoughts. Shadow Gligar, I thought it was dead, to be honest. At the start of the season, I was loudly and proudly saying Shadow Gligar is dead. But with Fury Cutter, it no longer has the same extreme neutral play. Like, it can get walled a lot easier. However, people are just not taking it into account when they're team building. So you're going to encounter some teams that are just absurdly weak to Gligar, and Gligar can really take advantage of that. So Gligar is more so relying on its defensive resistances now, rather than an amazing moveset, because his moveset was definitely knocked down quite a bit, because it used to have just an elite moveset, one of the best in the game, and now its moveset is just okay. But just okay with great stats and a great defensive typing is still a playable Pokemon. So to me, I would list it as that. It's a playable Pokemon. You can use it on your team and you can get some wins. Is it a must-have Pokemon anymore? No. But is it dead as far as Open Great League play? I would also say no. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.